All right, this is mini lecture 5 in module 2, and in this one we're going to dig a little bit into the details of the second part of the demographic equation, and that is mortality and morbidity. And so again, the main idea here is that when we've dealt with this, we've talked about crude birth rates, total fertility rates, age-specific fertility rates. Well, we're kind of going to do the same thing here in reverse. We're going to talk about crude birth rates, life expectancy, age-specific mortality rates, and then a special measure of quality of life called a DALY. So first of all, life expectancy is one way of understanding that crude death rate. Life expectancy simply is how many years is someone going to live before that death occurs. Well, one of the things we can say is that if we looked at the world in 1800, essentially the entire planet, people didn't live that long. The global average is 29 years. Now, if we go forward, what we see is an amazing change in life expectancy globally. Today, in 2015, the global average was 71 years. Now, what that means is that literally between 1800 and 2015, we have added an entire lifetime to the human population. In 1800, people lived 30 years on average, a little bit less. Today, people live over 70 years. That's twice as long, 2 lifetimes. That's an amazing transformation of any species. Now, that change in life expectancy has been rather dramatic and rather consistent. Now, of course, you'll notice some things, again, if we look at right here, of course, we see the effects of global conflict. But again, overall, here's the world, and you'll notice again this dramatic increase. All of the countries of the world, in one way or another, have had this upward trend. All right. Now, in the same way, we can also see that when people died has changed. And one of the things I want to point out here, this is the share of persons surviving to successive ages. In other words, so when you're born, this is being born, and this is being 120, if you will. Well, in 1851, the percent of the population that survived from birth to the age of 10 was only 70%. 30% of the population that was born died before they reached the age of 10. What's important about this part of the curve is that today that simply doesn't happen. Okay, virtually all of the population that is born survives to age 10. Even if we go back again, here's the 1931 curve. Notice this, that 10% of the population that was born in 1931 died before they reached age 10. That's 10%. That's still quite a bit. But notice between 1931 and 1951 how dramatically that changed, or even more significantly, between 1911 and 1951. Again, dramatic changes in infant mortality. All right, now, men and women die differently. Again, if we look at this, what we can see, again, the overall global trend is similar, but again, the share of the population that survives to age 65 is very, very high in the United States, significantly lower through other parts of the world. But again, men don't live as long as women. You'll notice that the women's life expectancy is higher, and again, a higher portion of the population reaches agedness. So sex, biological sex, influences death rates and life expectancy. Childhood mortality, again, global trends overall have been positive. Between 1990 and 2017, the percent of the deaths that occurred in infants, in other words, under 5, significantly decreased. Okay, 9% globally compared to nearly 25% in 1990. So again, mortality, that side of the equation, has improved in almost every measure. Now, the last part of this, though, is where it gets a little complicated. DALY's disability adjusted life year. what this really represents is if we take that life expectancy and we say, well, how many of those years are, if you will, good years? What we see is that while we have extended human life, we have in some respects also added a significant period of time where individuals have lived with disease. And so again, DALYs influence human lifespan. And again, if we kind of look at this, again, healthy life, what we see is that while life expectancy has gone up, the percent of the years that are lived, in a sense, with disability have stayed relatively constant throughout that. All right. Now, why does that happen? Well, in some parts of the world, the burden of disease is significant. And again, I don't want to get too much into this, but the DALY varies significantly country to country, and affluence influences that. All right. In the next lecture, we're going to be dealing briefly with the demographic transition, and then we will move into migration.